lack of service delivery continues to be a problem in Gauteng, and residents in communities like Alexandra and Soweto have repeatedly protested, demanding better housing and services. Earlier in the week, protesters blocked the road with burning tyres and allegedly tried to force entry into the nearby Alexandra Mall. All of this comes after City Power disconnected illegal power connections in Alexandra, including River Park and structures built around London Road. Meanwhile, the Gauteng government has vowed to resolve the water and electricity crisis in the province ahead of the local elections. For more on this, I'm joined by Director of the non-profit organization Back to Basics, Mpho Nawa. Very good morning to you. Thank you so much for joining us. We've observed, especially in the last couple of days, the fury of communities like some Alexandra residents who have had enough of not having sufficient power supply and also dealing with a housing issue, speaking and of course resulting in one person being killed just this week. What do you make of the problems such as those being experienced in Alexandra, especially in the build-up to election time?
No, thank you very much for this opportunity of addressing. Maybe let me start by correcting that. My name is Mpho Nawa. I do work for provincial government for a program called Back to Basic. We have had an opportunity to engage with different mayors across the province to look at how best can they solve the problem and what can the provincial government do to assist. And I think the MEC Lebogang Maile has gone in length to sit with on the human settlement issues. People are getting their houses now. So the issue about Johannesburg and actually across the entire province, you would know that the province has difficulties. And one of the difficulties that people are moving to Johannesburg is mushrooming of human settlement, informal settlement. And that has been an issue that is creating problems. However, we have said to municipalities, there is a need to provide basic services. And so those who have no sanitation, the municipalities might be able to help. So it's actually very difficult, but I think local municipalities are coming on board.
I mean, you speak about one challenge that is resulting in a situation such as this, but this is not a new problem. It's a problem that we've seen ongoing for a number of years, especially if we go to Soweto and take a look at the electricity problems there and the water shortages that we've seen being experienced across many parts of Gauteng and of course outside of Gauteng. What does this then speak to when it comes to the trust that community members have in government and continuously being failed by government when it comes to addressing these very serious issues?
Well, I think the point that you would make is that this problem is long, as you're saying it, and I think it has been occurring every time when there's an election, but even outside the election programs. The difficulty is that you have people who have decided not to pay municipal services altogether, which you would know that Eskom and Run Water do charge municipalities to pay. And therefore, there's a financial draining in how the cities are expected to respond. However, the government has said, let's do everything possibly to help the people. So that's one part of informal settlement. The second part that really creates problems is the municipal management of capacity, because, as I said earlier on, challenges of urbanization in the province are just huge and amazing, because literally the cities are growing. And if you don't grow the capacity to provide services, but the cities are growing, you indeed going to have a problem of providing the services. From the Gauteng side, I think there's been more thorough discussions of how best can we grow and plan for the future. And I think that's why MEC Maile has started a program called Planning for 2030, which is Gauteng 2030. How do we ensure that cities are reconciled with the new development or reconciled with the incoming of people in Gauteng? So that's the issue that we think can have a far-lasting problems. But again, we also had the sessions with Eskom that in a manner in which they charge and they communicate with communities, because a lot of other things are still run by Eskom, particularly people who have a direct relationship with Eskom, not with municipalities. And when they don't pay, Eskom switches them off. But when they protest, they don't protest to Eskom necessarily. They also overflow to municipalities. And so MEC Maile has taken the view that there must be a thorough engagement with Eskom to see to it that we can have some reconciled way to solve the problem. The president was in Soweto over the weekend, and I think he has also made a promise that there will be ways to ensure that the problems are resolved.
How then do we move to a point where communities and community members are not thinking of taking matters into their own hands, such as what we're seeing in River Park near Alexandra, where it's not the only area, it's just one example where community members are then using electricity and attaching it illegally for their own benefit, and then you seeing a situation where the RDP houses within that same area are falling short on their power supply because it's been taken over by others who've come into a community and started building structures of their own, illegal structures, and then now stealing the power that is allocated for only a certain number of people.
Well, I think that we all should know that electricity is a basic need for everybody and who must get it. But I don't think the government wants to allow illegality or people just put themselves everywhere. And that's why there's been a request that either cities formalizes the areas, or alternatively, people get to wait as again, because I think the biggest problem we're facing is that people are stealing electricity across the board. And I think if people put up an informal settlement, a week later they'll say they need electricity, a week later they will need water, sanitation. And then if they don't get it within the period they want, they close the road, they put rocks on the road that the people are unable to pass. And that's why we need government to actually put firm positions that you can't do it. And enforcement, compliance enforcement, that there must be compliance in the cities. I think the biggest call that the MEC is making, that the cities must also not wait for people to occupy illegally and a year later you want to fire them when already they've established themselves. So we need to really ensure that the land is bought by government and developed for people. So my sister, it's a difficult problem that the state is facing. However, there's always a discussion with Human Rights Commission that let's ensure that people get services, however, not to bulldoze and illegally join themselves. So that's the fight that we put. And I think the government has also deployed word-based structures to really bring education that the more you occupy illegally, the more you're going to create problems for the future, because at least let every land be built properly and there's a clearer settlement where people have access to basic services, water, electricity, and sanitation. And that means a cooperative. So the essence of government is to work hard and make sure that there's a relationship between the people and government.
In ensuring that relationship, you speak about MEC Lebogang Maile. He also spoke about how it's really important for municipalities, urging them to cultivate some sort of culture of community members paying for services and not breaking the law. How then do we get to a position of that understanding and that continuous culture when community members often feel let down by the municipalities?
Well, one of the things that MEC Maile would have raised sharply and also commissioned the department to do is to ensure that apart from pushing people to pay for services, but there's equally need to see to it the government respond to job creation, economic development, because some people can only be able to pay if their jobs have access. So municipalities must equally create an opportunity for people to develop. And when they are able to develop, they will then be able to pay that. So the cycle is also about unemployment, and I think the government is giving attention to that part. There's been a release about packages to activate new economic development in townships, in situ that people have access to some mini jobs so that they're able to pay. So there's whole each cycle is that you must create jobs, people must be able to get some money and they're able to pay their services. So the most important thing here is about creating trust with the government and the people. And the people should be able to pay. I think the biggest point that you will also know, there's this other problem called backyard dwellers, who your house is entitled to have a particular portion of electricity, but because you have other extra 10 people behind your house that also consume from electricity, they trigger electricity. So the problem is bigger. And it's not a unique South African problem. I think cities that are developing, cities that are enforced by urbanization, they go through these problems that people go at their backyards, and therefore it has a serious strain on basic service delivery. So as I said, it's planning, it's discussions, it's mobilizing people to appreciate, it's actually ensuring that there is a closer relationship, and councillors also to take their part in educating the people and mobilizing them to appreciate that we all need to pay, we all need to abide to the law. Nobody has the right to do as they want and vandalize, and a week later you need the same service that you vandalized a week ago.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Mpho Nawa, Chief Director of Back to Basics there, speaking about some of the pressing issues coming out of the shortages of water and electricity within some communities in Gauteng.